Which particular mall are you referring to?
I just live above a mall, so what are you talking about? Yeah. So we're going to move near Justin.
Hey, don't too crowded.
Now we're going on to segment 2, where we're going to settle this debate, East or West. Okay, I know we shared all our personal experiences, we addressed some stereotypes out there, but now we're just going to the final sort of solution to this debate, whether it's going to be East or West. So we're going to get our guests to vote, because there's only 2 of them. I'm also going to vote with my own perspectives, and then we're going to come to a conclusion. I'm going to go with 7 criteria. First criteria, accessibility and transportation.
If I remove the Tuas second link out of the equation and just talk about purely domestic, I would say East Side. Most important because you actually have 2 parallel lines running on the East Coast, and that speaks a lot. You have the new Thomson East Coast line that runs on the lower south periphery of the East Coast, and then you have our green line, our east-west line. So it's very unusual actually for a stretch of geography in Singapore to actually have 2 parallel lines. So East Side for me.
I'll go for the West.
Okay.
Since there's Tuas checkpoint, I think always the first link is always so jammed. The Tuas always brings me directly to
your golf course.
my golf course.
Compelling
Yes.
reason actually.
Yes. So always I'll go to Forest City to my golf. So Tuas
Then
is
if you
always
live in Jurong, it'll be such a short drive.
Yes, it will be such a short drive. 5 minutes and we're over there. So I think the West, with the connection to our neighbours, definitely it deserves a point.
Okay, unfortunately, I don't take the second link. I take the first link. And I really love the East Coast Expressway as well. I was just thinking about that. Then Justin described it very beautifully. So my vote is definitely for the East. I think the drive is always amazing. And yeah, so overall winner for accessibility and transportation. I'm sorry, West Siders. East Coast wins the accessibility and transportation. But I think Raymond brought a very strong point, which is the Tuas second link. People who love to
Go
drive over on the weekends, that's always the less crowded, the faster option. And you want to go to JB Outlet Mall, also fastest.
Yes.
Shopping malls and lifestyle. So this time we're going to go with Raymond first.
Shopping mall and lifestyle, I'll choose the East.
Okay.
Reason because I grew up in the East, not just because I grew up in the East, but
Which particular mall are you referring to?
I just live above a mall, so what are you talking about? So I cannot be choosing the West, right? So definitely, I think the East have enough for me to shop from Changi Jewel all the way to Parkway Parade. I think is enough shopping malls along the way.
And what's your favourite mall in the East?
My favourite mall in the East.
Don't say the one you live in, I don't.
Then I'll give my vote to Parkway lah.
Okay, why?
Yeah, because I grew up in the area, I can walk in the mall blindfolded.
Wow. Justin, how about you?
It's hard to pick a side, but if I can sort of discern, I would say the East Coast offers a bit more variety in terms of smaller solutions and smaller packages. So Parkway, you have your 112, you have your Kallang, you have your Paya Lebar, you have quite a bit of variety. But no mall there, I would say, has the kind of depth that I saw at GEM.
Okay.
Yeah, so when you go to Jurong, you got GEM, you got IMM. I was even shocked to see an IKEA inside GEM. I was like,
I didn't know this until recently also.
exactly. I actually was standing there looking at the IKEA for a while. I said, is really IKEA here and in a shopping centre? So that's why I say, you talk about depth. I think Jurong really, really amazed me over the weekend. So for that, I will give Jurong this point.
Wow. So surprisingly, I mean, I thought about it also. Personally, I'm not a shopper. I don't like going to shopping malls. I hate crowds. And when I want to go and buy something, I just want everything in one place. I want to go eat. I want to buy. I want to buy my groceries and get out from the mall. So for that purpose, I do feel that Jurong Point, IMM, and Westgate, they're much bigger. They offer a lot more options. So like Justin said, I don't have to travel too much from one place to another. I mean, I've been to I-12, Parkway Parade, even Tampines Mall. There are different malls. They're not as well interconnected as the Jurong Mall. So for that reason, surprisingly, my vote is for Jurong.
West
The west
side.
Yeah, so far it's a
The
tie.
tie.
It's 1-on-1. And we go on to our third criteria, which is nature and parks. First thing that comes to everybody's mind is East Coast Park. And then the west side, anybody who stays in the west will talk about Jurong Lake Garden. And my vote is gonna be slightly biased because I have never been to Jurong Lake Garden. But I mean, from what I've studied and what I've seen just during our property visits, it's actually very nice. It's very big. But because I haven't personally spent enough time there, I am probably gonna go with East Coast Park. But at the same time, having said that, East Coast Park on Saturday nights can be a bit of a nightmare because it's full of bicycles and I can't even walk peacefully along the beach. So, but I grew up having a lot of memories in East Coast Park, so it's still East Coast Park for me. But yeah.
I want to go opposite again. I go west
Wow.
because Bukit Timah Hill is quite nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, now even our botany, that area has a
Yeah.
lot of green parks.
Yeah, Bukit Timah Hill actually, if you really go and venture in, it's really quite deep. And more than that, West Coast is okay lah. It's not that fantastic compared to East Coast.
Okay.
But on the other side, I think West actually has quite a lot of offerings in terms of parks and natures. So yeah, I'll give my vote because of Bukit Timah Hill.
I grew up on East Coast. I love going to East Coast Beach. It was a savior to me during COVID to be able to cycle along the East Coast Beach. But having said that, now that I'm staying in a slightly western biased location, you realize actually the west side of the island has a lot more variety when it comes to nature. So you see, like what Raymond mentioned just now, you just talk about lake gardens, but aside from that, Sungai Buloh is also
Fair enough.
northwest. Bukit Timah Hill,
Yeah.
the southern ridges, Labrador, the entire stretch you walk from Mount Faber all the way through to Hort Park. It's a beautiful.
Actually, I thought, yeah,
Yeah.
that's another one.
So you think about it, you add it all up. Actually, the west side actually has. That was what I was very worried about losing when I left the east coast. But now that I'm on this side of the island, I realize, actually I've got so much more variety to choose. Botanical gardens, if you want to consider that as west as well. I mean, it's close to my house. That's a big space and it's such a beautiful space. It's a UNESCO heritage site some more. Right, so there's multitudes of and different varieties of nature on the west. So
that side also.
yes, exactly. The whole Kent Ridge, southern ridges, beautiful. So west side.
Wow. I was gonna say, I was quite counting on you to vote for the East, but I think you argued your points too well for me to rebut. So okay, this one, Westsiders, this is for you. So it's
it seems
currently 2 versus 1 for East. So next one, schools and education.
Can I vote half for this? Because I think primary and secondary, my vote goes to the east. But when it comes to tertiary, right, it's really to the west.
SUTD is in the East.
But SUTD is not as established as
NUS.
Singapore Poly, Ngee Poly, NUS, NTU. You are really spoiled for choice when it
Sorry,
comes
you
to
can
the-
only choose one. I mean, typically I think the deciding factor mostly is for primary schools. But I hear you, tertiary.
True.
Yeah, so if you're looking at the primary school sector, then I guess
Hey, that's leading, man. Ramesh, what's going on here? I sense some biasness already.
my vote this time around for the east. Because I really have a lot of fond memories about the schools in the east.
okay.
West lah. Adding on to what Raymond was saying about the tertiary education and all that, but you also have some of the best schools in Singapore that are Bukit Timah, which I consider as southwest or central west. So schools have always been quite a big topic for the area. So I would say that the west side of the island presents quite a bit more depth and breadth
Or
when
the
it comes
atas.
to when it comes to education.
Actually, now, because it's my turn, I'm also realizing it's not so easy.
So what, you're gonna ask for half point now as well?
Because, okay, I did some research before I came. Like, what are the good top primary schools in West and East? And if I just take the top 20, and it was slightly lopsided to the west. Because one side you have the Rulang, the Nanyang, the Henry Park. On this side you have St. Hilda's, Aitong, Tao Nan.
Yeah.
I was literally counting. So on a very data analytical point of view, I'm going to go with west side as well.
Okay.
Oh gosh.
So
West
it's
is leading.
3-1.
3-1.
Okay lah, no need to do anymore lah. 3-1. Okay. Sorry guys. Sorry Eastsiders.
Still got 3 more criteria. I think we can catch up Eastsiders. The next point is, which vibe do you like better? The kampung spirit. Where is it stronger? Is it the east or the west?
Yeah, this one no need to think. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be sorry about this. East side, of course. Right, you talked about it already. I mean, I also grew up as an Eastie, and I would say forever an Eastie. Despite enjoying the other side of the island now, I would still say that the East Coast vibe is always there. History, heritage, and that whole chill kind of factor, East Coast definitely.
This one expected, Raymond.
I vote for East as well.
Okay.
Because currently I live in Bedok.
Okay.
And recently I just found a fun fact that a lot of people who are this so-called moved out from Tekong, because Tekong was converted into a military base, a military camp, they will move to Bedok. So a lot of our
So literally kampung people.
and a lot of our people, my peers, their parents all came and settled down in Bedok. A lot of them have roots in Bedok.
Pulau Ubin and all that as well.
Yeah, Pulau Ubin as well. So in a way, the east side, they connected before. So that's where the kampung spirit is still very strong, I think, to me. And that's where really the kampung is. Geylang Serai is at the east.
Yeah, literally.
Literally.
Kembangan also used to be a big kampung. So
Yeah.
So my favourite place in the whole of Singapore is the whole Katong District 15 area.
Okay, let's move on, Ramesh. We already knew this one was, we already knew the answer.
So I mean, even for the, you talk about the history of it, but even for the younger generation, I think the whole cool hipster vibe, just because of, I think it's a multitude of reasons. It's the history, the heritage, as well as how they've turned the whole area into a nice cultural district with a lot of options. So it just and then the beach quite nearby. So all these factors put together, just the vibe
Feels more home.
It's just very hard to compete. So sorry to the west side. This one is a clean sweep by
Wow, clean sweep, man. Absolutely.
by the east. So now the score stands at
3-2
versus 2.
Yeah, okay.
So it's a close fight, and I'm going on to something quite big and important, which is
this one.
future development plans, infrastructure and URA plans. So people who are looking at the future upside, future potential.
In this case, I'll choose the West lah. Because I think the West has a lot coming up.
Yeah.
If you consider the southern waterfront, it's stretching all the way to west. Plus the mega port is coming up. Plus Fusion Polis is a thriving place now. Jurong West, that side, they're also coming up with, I think, another in digital kind of thing with NTU side. And plus Jurong Region Line and possibility of the high-speed rail again that's coming up. So really there's a lot of happenings there. There's a lot of happenings there. So, and I think the prices there, the entry price is still quite on a very palatable side. So, and government is also looking at creating a second CBD. So that second CBD story is really very strong. So I reckon it's really a good place to go to.
Well, they don't have the East Coast plan.
You never know. Maybe next election they say West Coast plan.
Actually, yeah.
It's definitely a tough one. I've heard all your arguments, but again, not forgetting on the east side, we have the Changi Airport, which has many more phases coming up. You have industrial areas there as well that are also booming, and then you have the Paya Lebar whole sector that's a few hundred of hectares of land that are going to be developed into a future development land. And then even looking even further, you have the whole East Coast, the island that they're going to create.
Long Island.
Yeah, so if you're talking about future potential, then yes, you can see things that are already happening in Jurong. But I think the greater future holds even more exciting things for the East Coast. So on that point, and the fact that I love going to the airport, And I always look forward when the new terminal opens up, and we are always the gateway to the whole world through the airport, and I think that's one of the major areas of future development. It's really the first impression people get also. So I think definitely the government will keep pumping in a lot of money in that area to make sure that area develops well. So my vote is for Eastie.
Why you ask this question? Seriously.
So it's one east, one west. So you will
So I'm the
decide.
deciding one.
Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to talk about all that about the East Coast that you just did.
Yeah.
How dare you talk about it first? That's why I say this one is a tough one, to be honest. The airport is a very, very compelling story. That's something that's unique across the whole island. You won't be able to get that. And I always, when we were doing Mayor Mansion last time, right? I was always selling the story like, if you study many cities in the world, the commute between the airport and the city center, a lot of real estate always thrives in between that commute space.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So it's something that is a fundamental in most cities in the world. So that's what the East Coast will always have. And then now we're expanding the airport some more, and we still want to continue to be an even bigger aviation hub in this region. That's a very exciting story. Paya Lebar as well. Right, Tampines is also being developed. Punggol also being developed as a decentralized business centers as well. So actually, to be honest, wow, both sides of the island, you're really going to be torn between for this. So because of that, I'm going to ask for 0.5 each.
This one is really...
No lah, okay.
It's a draw lah. I'll leave it as a draw.
Yeah, I would love to give both sides a point if possible.
So we still do not have a clear winner yet, because now it's...
Where are we now?
We are 3 versus 2 east and then 1 draw. So if
Goes down to the wire.
yeah, so the
Is that the last question?
Yes.
Oh
Last
my
question.
goodness.
Which-
Then it's meant to be. This will be the deciding. Oh wow, this last question.
there's one last question. So
So we are at the draw now.
yes, no, it's 3.5 versus 2.5 actually.
Yeah lah. So one is still ahead lah.
Yeah.
Who is
So
ahead?
it's either whether
West side is still
West
ahead.
is-
yes, either whether east can
Catch up
draw now or not.
or lose the game.
Yeah, or lose the game. So this is our favorite topic, property prices and investment potential. If your client comes up to you and maybe he's quite neutral, he really doesn't know where to buy.
I'll choose the West.
Okay.
Reason being, that with the many developments, as I said, I expect prices to continue to pick up. And plus the West side, actually, there's a lot of new towns as well.
Yeah.
So I think the secondary demand, the exit strategy will really be strong. So I foresee that the West has a compelling story that investors should really look seriously.
I'm gonna base it on the upcoming launches. So to be very honest, I'm looking for price gaps, and I do feel that some of the recent launches in the West, because he had hit such a price ceiling, I think it's created this new sort of dynamics for the West. People are re-looking at the West in a different way. I think this gives sort of an opportunity for people to re-look at the West and see whether the next launch, the price gap is big enough to go in. So I am talking about Jayden. Jayden was one of the top launches last year, which hit up to 2,800. This is like the record for OCR. So the thing that I personally would usually, how I would analyze is, if this project is selling at this new record price, what are the surroundings selling for? Is the gap big enough for me to, take advantage of? So that's one way I would look at entering the property market. So for that reason, and considering the upcoming launches in the market, I probably would have to go for the West side from a more investment perspective and an entry price perspective. I still think the West has more palatable PSF as well as Quantum. Another project I would mention is the Botany as well. So one of the cheapest new launches in the market. So just my general radar in terms of affordability and entry price, I do feel the West has a bit more to offer. So I'm going with the West.
Pursuant to those points you mentioned, Ramesh, I think for me the biggest thing in Singapore now, everybody is always very worried about is affordability.
Yep.
And accessibility. It's also at the government level that they're always very worried about that. So from that single perspective, I think the west side still presents many opportunities and a lot more headroom for growth, because the east is not cheap at this moment, right? The west side actually presents more headroom for capital appreciation potential. Then, of course, I think secondly as well, if you really look at it from the fundamentals of housing stock supply, and as you know, in Singapore, a lot of the movement from the market comes from HDB upgraders. Going back to one of the earlier things I mentioned earlier on in the conversation was that the west side of Singapore happens to have one of the largest public housing clusters in all of Singapore.
Yep.
And if you really think about it, all you need is a very small percentage of them to want to have the ability to upgrade. And because the price points are still accessible, there's going to be a lot of what we call a higher mobility factor, because it's very easy for them to unlock their equity in their current public housing and then put it into a condominium nearby. Because again, from the first point, that the price levels there are lower, it will be very hard for them to say jump all the way to the East Coast. The East Coast is not as accessible and affordable as the West side. So you marry these two things together, I think fundamentally the West side will seem to have a lot more headroom to grow. And actually, if you really look at the data already, you look at the last few years, District 22 is already starting to show the acceleration, because it's been lagging behind for many years. There's not been enough action going on. And even in the last 2-3 years alone, you see that every year on year, it's one of the strongest growth regions in all of Singapore at district level. So I think that momentum will continue to grow, because again, a lot of headroom, and now that more new launches are coming to the area, it will provide that kind of uplift and propensity for a lot of these almost close to 100,000 HDB flat and households there to want to think about maybe moving up the ladder. So, west side.
And to add on to what Justin said, I think another important thing that I've observed about the West is the upcoming new HDB town, which is the Tengah town, which is 700 hectares, 42,000 new flats coming up in that area. I think that is another very compelling reason, because these are going to be very young new families coming up there, and we haven't seen that in the West for a long time. And these people, after they move in, they grow their nests, they would also want to upgrade at a certain point of time.
The last major town was Punggol, right? In a way.
I would
think
East
so.
side, that was all the
If you consider Woodleigh but Woodleigh is very
But Woodleigh is
small.
not as big.
Yes.
So if you think about it, like for the last 10 years, I think, where do we find upgraders? Punggol. So the
all
next,
the northeast region.
So the next 10 years, I think where do we find our upgraders? That will be
west side.
Tengah.
Yeah.
So I think Tengah brings a lot of vibrancy to the west.
I think this for me is the game changer, where where are these buyers going to come from? If I invest something in Jurong now, where are my future buyers going to come from? I think the answer is Tengah, where all these people who are buying their new BTOs,
Yep.
they will wait for the appreciation and they will be looking for other options in the
Upgrade,
future.
yes.
So I think that's quite exciting. So I think this was a clean sweep with for the west side.
West
so
side
that
win.
the final verdict is quite clear, and I'm quite surprised because the three of us are all very clearly
Move house.
Easties who believe in the Eastern vibe. But after going through all the three criteria that consumers or buyers or anyone would look for, surprisingly, I'm actually quite surprised. I was actually determined to come in and make sure that East makes a win. But maybe I'm influenced by the two of you also. And
But actually, Ramesh, I think great thing for setting this metrics up.
yeah.
In my recent house purchase as well, sometimes we are so clouded by our emotions, our
Yeah.
biases, our judgments.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I actually love the ease and all that. But actually, when you start putting it down on pen and paper and you really qualify the criteria and look at it very objectively, sometimes you surprise yourself.
Yeah.
Because logically, it says, actually, all the logic points towards a different direction from what I thought I might have preferred. Right, so actually this is a very good exercise that I think more homeowners and future property seekers should also run through. Right, a very simple exercise of just putting out metrics and then sort of like scoring, and then you realize logically, actually by logic all these, and sometimes you will catch yourself, you still say, but my heart still feels, then you have to be very mindful already. Are you buying this because you love it?
Yeah.
But if you want to be very pragmatic and logical, then actually on paper, on what you just mapped out, logically you should actually be moving your money towards something else. Yeah, so actually this was a very good exercise. To be honest, when I was looking at it, I was like, wow, all these questions. But after you go through it, you realize actually, that's where we catch ourselves, right?
Interesting.
Mm.
Emotion versus
Logic.
intelligence and logic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because you break it down piece by piece, sometimes in life when you look at things in all its complexity, you're like, I don't know how, it's just an overload, right? But actually when you break it down step by step to go through each criteria, then you map it out and then you realize, when you score it, actually it all makes sense. Yeah.
So we're going to move near Justin.
Don't, too crowded.
Okay, final segment, quick one. I know people are still tuned in, but this is the final conclusion, is there are many launches coming up in the West. There's one in Clementi, there's one in Pine Grove area, then we have SORA coming up as well. So what is your pick? There's Jayden as well. There's some existing launches like Botany and a few launches around Hillview. So if you had to pick one, what is your pick?
My pick will be SORA.
Okay. Why?
Reason because of the view. You have definitely protected view because you are facing the Jurong Lake. And if you haven't been to Jurong Lake, it's actually beautiful. The whole area don't feel like Singapore actually. It doesn't feel blocked. I think the whole place just feels so out of this Singapore vibes. And all in all, it's near the second CBD, but not too near per se. And I think developers will put up a very good product to embrace the nature, plus the fact that it's going to be not too far from all the amenities. So for me, I think it's
why not Lake
very
Garden
unique.
just beside?
Lake Gardens just beside. Worth considering as well.
Okay.
Worth considering. I think that area gives a different vibes compared with the rest of Jurong or the other parts of the island. So I think it's worth taking a look.
Sure.
Really.
Justin?
My turn. You asked me to choose West side. I'm already there. You don't ask me about another West side, man. I'll put my money back in the East.
You're going to wait for Turf Club to develop and...
You see, that's the thing. There's so much choice, right? But going back to what we were looking at, the criteria and the selection process, you realize there were a few important things like connectivity. You can be anywhere on the island, but you have to be close to transport nodes and all that. So that's important as well. I mean, you look at the response that they had at Jayden.
Yep.
You can tell Singapore's flavour is still into integrated, being right beside transport node and stuff like that. But as much as we want that, that's going to cost money.
Yep.
So because of that, you then have to look at other alternatives. Then if you look at other alternatives, say if you look at SORA or Lake Garden, the unique feature of this property is not going to change, which is having that tremendous view of the lake and the park right at your doorstep. So these are fundamental factors that I think will ensure longevity of price protection for the property. But more importantly, because it is currently, to be honest, not as close to the epicenter and where the action and the buzz is and the transportation hub is, you're going to get actually a price differential. And that price differential is still important for this segment of the market, where affordability and accessibility is still key. As much as many people maybe in the future would love to stay at Jayden, how many people will be able to afford the resale prices of Jayden in the future?
Yep.
Versus how many people will be able to afford the resale prices, say around the Jurong Lake, because those will be priced cheaper.
Okay.
Right. So from that accessibility standpoint, I would say that I would love to also look at something with a good view. I mean something with a good view now. I really understand why people actually pay for views.
Yep.
And again, if this view is going to last, it's going to be there for quite a long time. That helps you to also preserve the value. And in the end, because you entered at a lower price point than something that was quite a bit more popular and integrated, that gives you a bit more headroom and a bit less risk and a bit more headroom for upside. So having said that, SORA is coming up. I think that'll be a very, very interesting property to look at as well because of the views. And there are only so many plots around the lake. So it's a rarity as well. Right? So based on that, I would say that I think SORA is a very interesting proposition.
And a lot of options, of course, they have from 1 bedroom all the way to 5 bedrooms. They are catering to a wider audience, whether you want to buy for investment, to rent out, or you're family, in bigger space, so they have quite a wide options and almost 60 over facilities for clients to, for home users to use. So I think, I personally, I always like looking at these new launches. When I went to see the sneak preview of SORA, I must say the feel, the look and the feel feels very very premium, very luxury. So the architecture, the way they've designed the Sky Park almost feels like some Sky Park in Bali that you would want to party in. So I think they've done a good job. So something to really look forward to. The project will be previewing in June 22nd. That's the estimated time. The timeline can change, but they're trying to that's the last weekend of the school holidays. So that's when the developer is planning to unveil this project. So I think I do encourage all of you to pay more attention to the west side, especially SORA, that is going to be one of the key launches in this very exciting area in Singapore. That's all we have for today. So till next time, when we dish out something more on Singapore's real estate market, maybe we'll go up to north and talk about Yishun and why so many exciting things keeps happening in Yishun. But till then,
we can go further north and talk about JB as well, right?
Of course. Until then, thanks for tuning in today, and hope to see you all soon in another session with for this podcast, talking about property and all things related to property.
Thank you.
See you.